Alright everybody, today I'm gonna show you how to Dockerize a NestJS application for production environments, and then we're gonna deploy it to AWS EC2 instance. So we're gonna Dockerize the NestJS application slightly different compared to ExpressJS application because we're using TypeScript for development, to develop the NestJS application, right? But we need to bundle, compile these TypeScript files into a JavaScript. And we don't need TypeScript files in production environment at all. So, if we Dockerize, if we put TypeScript files into the final Docker image file, then it will be not that optimized for production environments, right? It will be unnecessarily big image file, and we don't want that, because when the image file is big, it's hard to deploy, or it will store extra storage limits and all sorts of things. We basically want to reduce the file size as much as we can do, right? So let's get started. Now I create this simple NestJS application. I just pull them all from NestJS library. You type nest new and creating a new NestJS project, right? That's what I did here. Nothing more. Anyway, and here, how we execute this file. Well, we use npm run start dev to run this in development mode. What this does is basically, of course, we need to install node modules dependencies as well. Let's do it real quick. Come on, bro. Alright, now it's running and it returns hello world in localhost port 3000. So it basically run the TypeScript files, right, for development purposes. But in production, we want to build this file and compile TypeScript files into JavaScript and run the JavaScript files and remove the TypeScript files in order to optimize the final image size, right? So we would compile JavaScript files into TypeScript by running this build scripts, right? So let's just build it. It will basically create the dist folder in the project directory and bundle all the TypeScript files into JavaScript. Let's check this out. We have all those JavaScript files that we need to run in the production environment. And in order to run these JavaScript files, all we need to do is just type in node dist and main.js file, which is the entry point file, right? So now we're basically running our application in production mode using JavaScript files. So in this moment, at that moment, we don't need the source folder, the TypeScript files at all. So I can delete that and it will still keep going on to running, right? We basically reduce the file size, right, by deleting the source folder, the TypeScript files. And also in node modules we have both production dependencies, right here, as well as the dev dependencies, which enables us to develop in the local environment. But also we don't need the dev dependencies in production environment as well. So basically, when we create our image, we may want to exclude these dev dependencies as well as the source folder and other configuration files. All we need is just only these dependencies, production dependencies, and the node, and this folder, right? That's all. But that's it. Let's see all those things in action. Enough talking, right? So now I'm gonna show all those things in EC2 instance. We're gonna make the deployment at the same time, but the reason that I will show in EC2 instance just because my internet connection is not that good, so I'm gonna use EC2 to take advantage of AWS internet connection. So but the same logic applies, right? We're gonna just Dockerize the NestJS application. So I'm just gonna connecting to this. Let's connecting to again. just a simple EC2 instance, nothing fancy. So let's clear all those things. I'm just gonna go to well, sudo su file t. This is extra user that I created. Doesn't matter, you don't have to. But anyway, so now we have a project folder I created before the video. Let's get into this. And there's nothing. Great. So now I want to put this project into this EC2 instance, and I already published this in my GitHub, so all I need to do is just basically clone it to this EC2 instance. Not like that. Git clone. Come on, bro. Git clone. Alright, let's clone it and get into this. Great. So now what are we gonna do? Well, we'll basically create a Docker file, as you probably guessed, and we're going to type the instructions that the building process needs to build the image, right? So first I'm gonna create a Docker file that is not production ready. I mean, it will not be that optimized for production ready environments. Instead, we're just gonna create a Docker file super fast, and the final image size will be relatively bigger, right? Because we will not apply any kind of optimization. So let me show you real quick. I'm gonna create a Docker file here, Docker file, and I prefer to type all those things in editors. I'm gonna create Docker file in here and type all those things, and then copy and paste to my terminal Docker file. Okay, so what I want, like basically, like as we were doing for an Express.js application, we're gonna do the same thing here. Firstly, the second one, it's going to be more optimized. But first, let's understand the concept. Well, we need a base image, right? I'm gonna use Node 18 Alpine version, like Alpine operating system 18 version, and our working directory will be user source app. You can call it whatever you want, by the way. And I'm gonna copy the package JSON and the package log JSON, both of them, to the current directory, to this directory, right? Into the container, into the image. And then I'm gonna run the npm install command to install all the dependencies, both production and development dependencies. And then I'm gonna copy all the source codes from this local directory to the image directory. And then once we have the codes in here, I'm going to run the npm run build command to compile the TypeScript files into JavaScript files. And as I showed you in the beginning of the video, it'll be compiled to the dist folder, because we specified just like so in our tsconfig JSON file. Like out there is dist. You can change it whatever you want, but the dist is recommended one. Like this is common, right? Anyway, and once this command run inside of the container, inside of the image, we will have a dist folder, like subsequent folder after this main directory, right? So we can basically say as a cmd that node dist main.js, which we basically exactly just do it here, right? Node dist main.js, because once we run the build, all the JavaScript files will be located in this directory, and we want to execute this main.js file. Perfect. Now, also we want to expose the port as well. Alright, that's the main Docker file, and that will work very well. Like there's nothing wrong with that Docker file, but it's not that optimized. But let's see that first. What we will get back. So let's copy and paste it here. Let's control it one more last time. Everything looks good, and let's save it. So let's check if there's any images. Yeah, we have already. I created those things before the video. I'm just gonna delete them real quick. HRM, NestJS. API prod, yeah, force it. Right, I've deleted all the images and containers. So now we have the Docker file exists here, and now I want to build image based on this Docker file. So we will execute the docker build -t command, and I'm gonna give a name for that. I'm gonna call it NestJS API. Yeah, just that's enough. And let's call it image. So let's build it. Alright, it's done. So let's break down the like these instructions, like these steps, right? So firstly, we install the node image like as a base image, right? And then we create a work directory, and then we copy the package.json into the image, and then we execute the run the npm install command to install all the dependencies into the this directory in the image, and then we copy all the source code into the image, and then we run the npm run builds to compile them into JavaScript files and create this folder and compile them into this folder, and then we expose in port 3000 and all sort of things. Great. So now our image is built. So let's take a look at it. Images. So we have Node and NestJS API image. I don't know what that is. We can delete that. Docker image rm db. Alright. So now we have two images. Like this is our own image, and this is node image for base image, right? Anyway, now let's run it as a container and see what's going on. So I'm gonna run it. I'm gonna name it like NestJS API C1, like container 1, and the port mapping will be 3000 to 3000, and I'm gonna run this in detach mode, and I'm gonna be using NestJS API image as an image. So let's run this. Let's check the processes, I don't know. Alright, it's up and it's mapped to port 3000. So now, if I open up my Postman, and it's like, of course, I need to get the IP address of this instance. So let's replace it with this IP address. Alright, port 3000. Let's send it and see if we can get this back. Alright, great. We're getting it back. So that means that we successfully Dockerize our application, and it's public now. We can also take a look at in the browser as well. Port 3000. Of course, I think I don't have to say that, but you need to you need to add rule to port 3000 in your security groups of this instance. Otherwise, you will not be able to access this port. But anyway, I already set it up, so this is not the topic. The topic is about Dockerizing and all sort of things. So now it's done. But as I said, this is not the most optimized way to create production-ready Docker image for NestJS application, because let's get into this container and see them together. See it together. Docker exec it, and get into this NestJS API C1, go to sh. So now we're automatically in the root directory of this container, the user, source, and app. So if I ls, I will see that all the files that this project has copied to this thing, right? Like what we did here, according to instruction, we create this work directory, okay? Then we copy the package.json to this directory. Yes, we've got package.json as well as package.json. Then we run npm install to get the node modules, great. And then we copy all those other rest of the source code to this directory. And as you can see, we get all those things, like all those configuration stuff that we don't really need in production. Because all we're doing here is actually running the main JS file inside of this folder, and we don't need all those things like Docker file, and we don't need them. So let's learn how to create optimized Docker file to reduce the size of the final image. So let's come back here, and I will basically change it a little bit. Okay, this is the second version. This will be the second version, more optimized version. So this is going to be the build stage, which, by the way, we're going to be using multi-stage in order to accomplish that. It's kind of complex, but I'm gonna try my best to explain those things. So this is going to be the build stage, and after we run the npm build, this stage will be finished, and after that we will have the production stage, right? And we need to prefix with build. Doesn't matter like that. Yeah, we can say as, doesn't matter. So now I'm gonna say from like node, like the same thing actually, alpha. Alright, perfect. And then I'm gonna use the same work directory inside of this image, and I'm gonna copy the not package.json first. Like this is important. We want to copy from the previous stage, which is the build stage here, like this, from the build stage, user source app dist to dist folder. Well, let me finish that first, okay? Then I'm gonna copy the package JSONs to here, and then I'm gonna expose it. Not expose. I'm gonna first run npm install, but not install all the packages. Only production dependencies, not dev dependency, because we don't need them in production environments. So then we will expose the port in 3000, and our cmd command will be like same as before, nodes dist folder and main.js. Let me check my notes if I'm missing something or not. And additionally, we can also add this thing as well. Run rm package JSON. Right, what's going on here? You're waiting an explanation, I know that, and I'll give it to you. Just relax, okay, calm down and focus here. I guarantee you that you will understand this concept at the end of this video, because if you don't understand here, I'll be showing another examples in that video. Even we're gonna ask to chatbot the GPT to explain all those things one by one, so we'll be understanding really amazingly. So just wait, I'm gonna first explain it, then we're gonna discover it together. So anyway, I'm just talking all those things because it was a little bit hard for me to understand what's going on, so I'm just trying my best to explain you what's going on here. Anyway, So differently, what we're doing here is start with a base image, right? And we're basically calling it a build. We can call it whatever we want, like we can call it John, right? It doesn't really matter, but we're just calling build because that makes sense. And then we're creating our work directory in this image, and then we're copying all the package.json to this directory inside the image, just like we were doing in the first Docker file. And then we execute the npm install to install all the dependencies to this image, and then we copy all the source code to this image, and then we run npm run build commands to compile TypeScript files to JavaScript files. And actually, like as I showed you in the beginning in the video, when we run this commands, it will create a dist folder inside of the current directory, which is in this case this directory. Like basically it will create a dist folder just like so, right? And then it will put all the JavaScript files into this folder. Keep that in mind. So then, this is the first stage. This done, right? This is for building. We get all the codes, we install all the dependencies, and then we build the TypeScript files to JavaScript files. That's it. And for the second stage, we're again using Node Alpine image for the base image, and then we're creating work directory inside of this image. Like, think the two stage as a different images, right? So after we create our work directory, we will copy something into this image directory. So what we're copying here? Well, we're basically saying that I want to copy something from the build stage. This build indicates this name, right? Whatever you call it, you will call it here as well. So we'll basically say we want to copy something from this stage, this image file system. Like I'm specifying the file system for this first stage, which is like user source app dist. And as I said, once this command run, the dist folder will be created in the local in the current directory, which looks like this. I want to say that I want to copy all those things inside of this dist folder to the this image, like which is this image, production image, and I will create a dist folder inside of this image as well, and copying all those things into this image. That's exactly what's happening here. And after that, we're copying the package.json from this local environment, and then we basically say that npm install only production. So that's basically we'll only install normal dependencies, production dependencies, not dev dependencies. Like in package.json, we specify two different type of dependencies, right? One for called dependencies, which is actually for production, and the other one is dev dependencies. By running this command, npm install only production, npm will only install these dependencies from npm registry, not the dev dependencies. Because, like as I said, we don't need dev dependencies in the final image. So after we install those things into this production image, this directory, we will basically remove the package.json file, because like package.json file just exists to indicate which dependencies that this project use. And once we get those things and use them to install the real modules from the registry, we will not need those package.jsons anymore, right? Like these are just trash anymore. So it's best to remove them in order to reduce the file size, like image size. And then after all those things, we will expose in port 3000, and this is the command that will be run once we run this image as a container. So that's the whole thing. And again, I want to remind you that all we're doing here is actually, like the purpose of all we're doing here is reducing the final production image size. That's the whole thing, right? That's why we create two separate stages, once for build and once for production. and this production image doesn't have any TypeScript files or configuration files or any other unnecessary files in it. We only have node modules, which includes only the production dependencies, and also we have only this folder which includes JavaScript files that we actually need to run this NestJS application in production. So that's how Docker file should look like if you want an optimized Docker file, Docker image at the end of the day in production environment. Production. I love production. The pronouns of production word is awesome. Production. Anyway, let's copy this thing and let's get out this thing. But I think our connection is gone, so I'm just gonna delete that, connect again. Alright, so in the project folder, we have let's just start package. Exactly. I'm gonna remove the Docker file, yeah, and create this again, Docker file, Docker file, and inside of this I'm gonna copy and paste this thing. Right, looks good. I'm gonna save it, and actually I forgot to create .docker ignore file for the first Docker file, but let's create it in this step. Man, what are you doing? Nano docker ignore, and we'll basically ignore node modules folder if there is a one, but in this case no, because we haven't installed Node.js into this instance, so we cannot install node modules if we really wish to, even if we really wish to. But anyway, also we don't want to include Docker file as well as Docker ignore file into the image file system, because they're unnecessary. So let's save them, and which, by the way, I assume that you know what the Docker ignore file is about. If you don't know, just go and watch a Docker tutorial. Anyway, so now we have images thread. I spelled it wrong. Docker images. So now we're gonna create a new image based on this new Docker file that we created here. So I'm gonna build this image again, build T, and I'm gonna call it NestJS API image prods, short for production. And this image will be for production, right? So let's create this real quick. So let's see what's going to happen. The production environment. So let's just break it down while it's downloading all those things. So first we're using Node as a base image, and this is going to be the build stage. And then we're creating the work directory. We're copying all those package.json. We're install all the dependencies. Then we copying all the source into this image. And then we run npm run build in order to compile TypeScript to JavaScript into the dist folder. And then this stage is done. Then in the second stage, for the production stage, we're using again Node's Alpine, and our work directory will be the same, but these can be different really. It doesn't matter. And then we're copying from the build stage, from this directory, from this dist directory, because this folder has been created when we run the npm run build command, and we're copying all those JavaScript files from this directory to this production stage file system, and when we're creating this folder, and we're copying all those things into this folder. And then we're copying package.jsons, and we're installing only production dependencies, not dev dependencies, because we're not in the development environment anymore. We're in production. So After we installed production dependencies, we run the rm package.json to remove package.json because we don't need them anymore. They are trash anymore. And we expose the application in port 3000, and our command will be node dist main.js once we run this as a container. Perfect. So let's check the images again. So just ignore this none image. It's probably generated automatically for the build stage, but this is not important. Like here, we need to focus on this NestJS API image prod and this thing. This is for development, right? Okay, look at the size, guys. That's what I'm talking so far. What I'm talking about so far. Like, look at this size. Like, it's huge amount of difference, right? This is 184 megabytes, while the this previous image is 461 megabytes. Like, that's amazing, right? We optimized the image size a lot. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's basically it, right? Now, in order to show you the big picture, I wanna run this as a container and get into this container and see what's in that container, in that file system of the image, right? So I'm gonna run this as a container, but first we need to stop this. I'm always typing or spelling this Docker wrong. Not always, but sometimes. So here, yeah, we have this like the other container that builds, that's running with using this older image. But I need to stop this because otherwise the ports will be conflict. I'm gonna stop this container. The ID is D9. Not like that, D9, alright. Alright, it's stopped. Docker PS, alright, nothing working. Now I'm gonna run this and I'm gonna name it NestJS API C1 prod. API prod C1 production container or something. You can call it whatever you want. And the port will be 3000 to 3000, and it's going to be in detached modes, and we're going to be using NestJS API image prod, which is the optimized image file. So let's run this. Okay, great. Now we have this container up and running for 1 second, right? And it's mapped to 3000 to 3000. Let's see that. Now it should work again. Alright, it should work. It's working. But the thing is, what's happening inside of this container? So let's get in. NestJS API prod C1 sh. Not like this, sh. Alright, so now I'm gonna type in ls to see what's in that container. That's it, right? That's it. We have only dist folder and node modules folder. That's all it, right? We don't need, like, we don't have all these unnecessary configuration files for production or test folder or like the source folder. Like, it's not there, but you know, the source folder where the TypeScript files exist. We don't have any of them, which is what we exactly want. That's reduce the image size, because we delete all these things, or like basically we removed everything that we don't actually need in production environment to run the application. So that's why we decrease or reduce the image size a lot, right? So in this folder, as you can probably guess, we have JavaScript files and some TypeScript files. I don't know what these TypeScript files for, but basically we have JavaScript files, the main.js files, where's that main.js files, and we're basically running this file to run the whole application, you know how the NestJS works. And in the node modules, we have only production modules, not dev dependencies, right? So all those things just basically reduce the image size, and it's like basically more optimized image. That's what it is. Like, use it if you want, don't use it if you don't want. The formula is basic, right? If you want an optimized final image for your production, just use this technique or similar to this. But if you don't want that, just type real quick, don't use multi-stage Docker files, and just put them all together, and your final image size will be super high, and it will really hard for you to deploy it to production or do it with it anything. Do it with anything. Anyway, that doesn't matter. That's basically the whole thing, right? Now it's working, as I show you. It's working. This is the only container. It's working now, and it returns it. It's working perfect. And now it's on EC2, and it's on production. Actually, we deploy it, right? Well, actually, my internet connection, if my internet connection wouldn't be bad, I would do all those things in my local environments and then deploy it to EC2. But we did all those things inside of the EC2, and we basically deployed. So, which, by the way, do I have to, or should I turn on the lights? I don't know. Anyway, let's keep it as is. Anyway, so that's the whole point. But now I want to ask ChatGPT to explain each step for us, so maybe we can get more insights from it. So I'm gonna go to ChatGPT. Alright, now I'm gonna copy my Docker file, and I will say that, hey, can you explain this Docker file for me? So let's see how it goes. Very exciting, right? We have a private teacher for free, and it will teach us everything we want. So let's see what we'll get back. Alright, this Docker file defines a multi-stage build process. Yeah, you're right. Build process for building and deploying a Node.js application in a Docker container. The first stage of build, referred to as builds, used to you know what? That's not the response that I want to get back. Like, I think I need to say something else. Hey, I built a Docker file for NestJS app, because it's explained much better before the video when I was trying it. So I just expecting the same answer or similar. As they say here, similar to one I previously described, with a few minor differences. Oh, it's actually talking about this thing here. Yeah, but anyway. Build use the Node.js module, production start with the... Alright. I just basically say, hey, I built a Docker file for NestJS app for production environment. Can you explain it step by step? And it's like gives me a good explanation step by step. Really great. I like that. So let's break it down together. It's still break it down on its own, but let's break it down together. So I will read all those things just to learn it better by myself as well, because I'm still learning. And also maybe you can learn something as well. But if you don't want to listen by reading this, you can just stop the video, read it on your own, or just go and ask the same question to ChatGPT. I don't care, but I will read it anyway. So, this Docker file defines a multi-stage build process for building and deploying a NestJS application in a Docker container for a production environment. Here's a step-by-step explanation of what each line does. That's exactly what I want to hear. From node atl file as build specifies the base image for the first stage of build process, which is based on NestJS version 80 and the lightweight Alpine Linux distribution. The as builds part specifies that this stage of the build will be referred to as build in the rest of the Docker file. It's great. Work there user source app sets the working directory for the rest of the instructions in the Docker file user source app. Copy package.json copies the package.json file and any other files matching the package.json pattern, such as package.log.json, yeah, exactly, from the host machine into the user source app directory in the container. Which, by the way, I'm going to turn on the lights. Wait a second. So run npm install the dependencies for the application as specified in the package.json file. Yeah. Copy ... copies the rest of the application code from the host machine into the user source app directory in the container. Run npm run build runs the build script specified in the package.json file, which typically compiles the application code for production. Man, amazing explanation, really. Yeah, we're in now second stage. From node.atl file specifies the base image for the second stage of the build process, which is also based on NestJS version 80 and Alpine Linux distribution. Exactly. Work directory user source app sets the working directory for the rest of the instructions in the second stage of the build to user source app. Sets the working directory for the rest of the instructions in the second stage of build. Yeah. Basically, this work directory for the rest of the instructions, like in that stage, right? So, copy from build user source app this to this. Copies the build application codes from the build stage, like the previous stage, into the user source app this directory in that container. I think it's okay, right? You understand it. And then copy package.json, copies the package.json file, any other files matching the package.json pattern, such as package.json, yeah, from the host machine into the user source app directory in the container. And run npm install only production, installs the production dependencies for the application as specified in the package.json file, not dev dependencies. Run package.json removes the package.json and any other file matching the package.json pattern from the container. This is typically done to reduce the smart AI, guys. This is very smart. Yeah, this is typically done to reduce the size of the container mesh. Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Exposes port 3000 on the container, which is the port that the application listens on. cmd node dist main.js specifies the command to run when the container starts. This command runs the main entry point for the application, which is typically located in the dist main.js file. Overall, this Docker file allows you to build a Docker container for a NestJS application that is optimized for production deployments. That's it! Great explanation, I love that! Really, step by step, it's break it down in little pieces, like for each instruction, like it explains great. Amazing, I love that. I think you got the point, right? What's going on under the hood, right? We're basically creating the first stage for building the TypeScript files into JavaScript files, and then in the second stage we're basically copying the TypeScript files, not TypeScript, compiled JavaScript files, like the build. Once it's built, we are copying the JavaScript files from the first stage file system to the production, to the second stage file system, and creating the dist folder and put all them into the dist folder. And then we're getting the package.json from the host machine file system. We're run the npm install only production for installing only production dependencies, not dev dependencies, because we don't need them in production. And then we remove package.json once we're done with them, because they're trash anymore, right? And it's like, as it say here, this is typically done to reduce the size of the container image, right? And lastly, we're exposed to 3000, and of course, and then we're basically will use these commands when we run this image as a container, because we build the TypeScript to JavaScript in the first stage, then we copy all those JavaScript files into the last stage, and now all the JavaScript files, including the main.js, which is entry points, exist in this dist folder. And if we say node dist main.js, it will basically run this JavaScript files by Node.js, and our NestJS application start running. That's it. Great. So we got the lesson from AI, which is perfect. So now let's take a look at it again. I mean, we lost our connection. Let's connect it again. That's amazing, really. So go to projects, NestJS starter package. So we have two different images. One's for production optimized for production image, as the AI says the same thing, and one's for like not that optimized, right? Because like as you can see in the size here, because it has that much size, just because it contains all the TypeScript files as well as all the div dependencies files or all the configuration files, that doesn't even need to run a NestJS application or JavaScript files in production. So that's why it is that big, right? And this is unnecessarily big. Like, this is how it should be. Like, even we can reduce the file size much more, but that's it for now, right? We can discover it more later on, but that's it. You got the point. We will eliminate everything that we don't need in the production environments, such as package.jsons, once we're done with that, of course, or div dependencies or TypeScript files, because TypeScript is just for development. That's it. Like, as I said, we're eliminating all these things, like we're removing all those things once we're done with it, right? We first get the TypeScript files, build them, and then we remove them basically, or we don't include it in the final image. We get the package.json, we run the npm install, and only production, of course, and after we're done with that, we basically remove the package.jsons, right? That's the idea of optimizing the image size. But that's the whole thing. We Dockerized our NestJS application for production environments, and then we deploy it to AWS EC2 instance, and it's fully working, right? Yeah, it should work. Yeah, working. And also, if we say docker logs, I mean ps docker logs, what is the ID for F? We can see the logs from our NestJS application, and it will indicate that's running, right? It's running. We get the response back. So that's it. As I said, we made the deployments very good, and also we learned a lot of things about how to optimize Docker image size for production environments. But that's it. I think you learned a lot of things just like me, because I learned a lot from this video. Yeah, I learned a lot by making videos, and I hope you learn a lot by watching videos as well. But that's it. Really, that's all I got for this video, and yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye bye.